About a week ago, I spent $24,000 on these video games in one day. It included one $12,000 bulk deal purchase, which is my largest ever, and then another large purchase from a video game store. And in the course of that video, I got a lot of questions because the answer that I was giving for how much I really wanted to pay for a bulk deal seemed to kind of be fluctuating during the day. So in this video, I've created a paradigm to help you guys, any reseller out there, with how much you should actually pay for bulk deals, the different factors that you should be considering. And then I also want to give you guys who did see that video an update on how we've managed to process. And I think by the end of this week, we will process all $24,000 worth of stuff. In reality, on Amazon, it's probably more like $40,000 worth of stuff within 1 week. I want to talk a little bit about the processes that we've developed to maximize our efficiency when it comes to processing video game inventory, in hopes that maybe it can help some of you guys. But the first question at hand, by the way, how about this whiteboard? Huh, folks? Things are about to get real collegiate up in here. You're about to get a free Renix P-Sale degree. Class is in session. We have a basic XY graph here, right? This is the basic positive correlation line. I don't know what the academics call it. I haven't been to college in 10 years. On the I think this is the y-axis, we have between 0 and 100% of market value of how much you can, not should, but can pay for bulk deals. On the x-axis, we have multiple different factors because there's no one graph that makes sense for everything. But when I was thinking about it, these are the 4 primary things that I think about when considering how much to pay for a potential bulk deal. 1, knowledge of the product. I will pay a lot less for deals that are outside of video games than I will for deals that are inside, because this is the stuff that I know and I understand when I'm buying a copy of Hulk, what is this? The Incredible Hulk. I don't know, I should have paid way less for this. That I need to take a look and see if the disc is scratched. I need to look at disc rot. I need to check for a manual. I need to see if there is water damage to the cover art. Is your finger in it right now, Spanky? It is creeping over. Come on now. He's hungry.
He's a rookie.
He's hungry for attention.
It's my first time.
Inside voice also. You're holding the camera. Apologies to anyone with headphones. The more I know about the product, the more I'm potentially willing to pay for a bulk deal of, ideally here, video games. Now keep in mind, for all of these little qualifiers, all of these considerations, this line is the max line, right? It's not what you should shoot for, and obviously it's very generic, right? Here it goes from 0 to 100%. In reality, most of the bulk deals that we do fall somewhere in this range, but anything in here is acceptable, right? Because this is price, right? So obviously as resellers, the closer that you can get to 0% of market value, the lower your risk is, then the better you're likely to do on that given deal. However, there are other considerations to make, such as, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and go rogue right now and add one. Potential for future deals that I realize as I'm speaking, that's a huge factor that I often will consider when I'm making offers. But let's go ahead and get to number 2, knowledge of the seller. This is something that can really sink folks if you're doing especially local deals with someone that you have never done business with before. The risk is inherently higher, so you'll want to keep your offers in general lower as a percentage of total market value. 3, ease of processing. This is the biggest reason why when I'm making offers on lots that include a whole lot of consoles or a whole lot of collector's editions or a whole lot of Pokemon cards or something random that we don't normally sell, my offer on average is going to be a lot lower on the scale of 100% of market value, because most of that stuff for us is not easy to process. You can't send a lot of collector's editions off to Amazon. You can't it takes us a long time to process and test and clean consoles, much longer than it does for video games, which is why we don't really take them anymore. And especially if it's something outside of my niche that I'm gonna have to figure out how to process. Maybe someone has a killer Pokemon card collection, but I don't have any top loaders. I don't have envelopes to ship those things, right? So there's going to be a lot higher costs associated with selling that stuff, and the amount that I could theoretically offer would honestly be laughably low because I don't want to do any of that work. Sales velocity, sales velocity of the product. This is a big thing that I talked about in that video when I was considering with this specific $20,000 eBay store lot that I'm considering. I mentioned that with the general collection, as a super general rule of thumb in the past, we've gravitated towards right around here on the graph, right around 40% of price charting value, because that's sort of our industry standard within the video games niche. As a very general rule of thumb, not taking into account any of these factors will oftentimes land somewhere in the 40%. And a lot of people got confused because for this specific deal, I ended more like 58, 59% of market value, which is the most I've ever done. And in fact, we had someone email us earlier this week to our buy list email saying, hey, I've got this lot of stuff. I think it's a lot better than the stuff that you bought from that guy. I saw that you paid almost 60%. I'd consider taking that. And unfortunately, we weren't able to offer it because it was a lot of like boxed cartridge stuff, cardboard that, as you guys know, we can't move on Amazon and would actually, for our business model, be much more difficult to process. So our percentage offer was lower, and we ended up just referring that person to another, generous buyer that we know of that sells at conventions. This item right here was the biggest thing. Actually, both of these were the biggest things in the $20,000 deal that I ended up paying at $11,500 for. Spoiler alert, I will link that one at the end of this video if you haven't seen that negotiation. It's a little bit cringy because of, the stakes are high. It's worth a watch. But these two items right here were the biggest things that convinced me to take my offer from here to here. Because you can see we're halfway through processing all of the Xbox 360 stuff, both from that eBay lot and also the game store. This was easy inventory to get through. It was like 80% of it was stuff that we can sell on Amazon. It was all games, no consoles, and almost all of it was US as well. And almost all of it was was fast selling AAA kind of titles that will actually move on there. It's not like some obscure JRPG that will have to wait a year to sell. And that's the other part of the equation, the sales velocity of the product. So sometimes people will assume that this is a simpler equation. Our bulk deal offer system is simpler than it really is. And they'll get offended when I am not able to offer, maybe like in another deal, I've done 50%. And I offer someone else 30 because they've got a whole lot of boxed retro stuff that has great value, but doesn't really work for our model. Or they've got a lot of collector's editions or obscure, what's another little niche that I don't know, old sports games or whatever, right? That for whatever reason either sells slow and we'll have to sit on that money and have it tied up for a long time, or it's just not as easy to process. But these are all things that we think about. So I'm just gonna go for this specific deal and explain my thought process on all 5 of these parameters. The first one, knowledge of product, it was super high. I mean, you guys can see half the games on there were already on our buy list anyway, so I'm very used to seeing them. And it's disc-based video games. There was some cartridge stuff in there too, but it's all stuff that we sell literally dozens of copies of all the time. So knowledge of product was super high. Knowledge of seller was something that was honestly more medium. We had a couple of referrals. We know multiple people that Josh did business with. And we could see from his eBay store and everything that he has good feedback, he's reputable, but I haven't personally dealt with him before. So this was probably the biggest hesitation that I had with the deal. Ease of processing, fantastic. It was all games. I don't think, were there handhelds in the deal? I don't think there were. Super easy, best case scenario. Incredibly easy to process, and therefore the function goes up. Sales velocity, almost all the stuff was really good. I would say 20% of it, 10 to 20% of it, we're going to end up selling for break even or honestly a little bit of a loss to a video game store. That's not ideal. But this last factor here, the potential for future deals, also influenced me to pay up a little bit more, because it's clear that Josh is a person that not only is in our region, which is fantastic, he's a few hour drive away, but he's got access to really good inventory. He knows what he's doing. He is sorting condition well. So there's, I would say, a high likelihood that we'll do future deals, which makes me want to pay a higher percentage of market. Now, hopefully that all makes sense. I wish that I could say that we then took all of that exact inventory, and this is what I kind of wanted to do, plugged it into our listing software Exceller list and had a specific number for like the total listed value of everything in that collection. We don't, because in order to do that separately, I would have had to keep everything from his purchase and from the store and from all of the buy list orders that we were getting in on Tuesday, which was, I think it was like $12,000 worth. We would have had to keep all of that separate, and it would have made our process significantly slower. So I didn't end up doing that. But my best guess is that, is your finger slipping in again? He's clean this time, folks. My best guess is that we'll probably make in the neighborhood of maybe $5,000, because we do have to pay pretty hefty fees on Amazon with it. But the good news is we'll get slightly above market in terms of the prices. So I want to take you guys over here because I'm super proud of this. You can see this isn't even all of the Xbox games, actually. Some of the Xbox has already been processed. Literally 2 days ago, not only was every single one of these shelves filled, but we had probably 6 stacks about up to here of additional games that we had not processed. About up to here, I would say. That's probably about right, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had stuff under here. It was absolute chaos. By the way, on Monday, we just shot a video for Phoenix Resale that's going to come out on Christmas Eve, that if you guys like this channel, it's going to feel more like Phoenix Resale than anything Phoenix Resale has ever seen. So keep an eye out for it. I made it for you guys. It's on the main channel, but it's really for you guys because it's all about building a large resale business. So the fact that we have been able to do so much of this by Wednesday of this week, I think is a testament to how much we have tightened up our intake and processing system. So I wanted to share a little bit about that on the tail end of this video. Let me know, by the way, if I have missed anything in terms of like parameters for how much you should pay for a bulk deal, but wanted to share a little bit of our process. Here's the last thing I want to say at the whiteboard, because I just like it and it's very pretty and nice. Depending on your niche, your range very well may not look like this, right? So say you're a yard sailor and you're just doing individual one-off items in multiple niches, and you're always going to have, or most of the time, your knowledge of product and knowledge of the seller is going to be lower. So your line may start at 0, because sometimes you will buy things that people are just giving away, but it may only go up to max out at like 50%. That's more like 60. But your top threshold might be significantly lower. I actually originally, when I was making this graph, I was going to have this top out at like 80%, but I realized that there are a few games on our buy list that we actually pay really close to 100% of market value for, because they sell so well on Amazon and their sales velocity is so insane and we can't keep them in stock. So our margins are super slim on those, but we have high knowledge of product, high knowledge of seller. The ease of processing is incredible. And also paying that level of prices helps create repeat sellers for our buy list program. I'll try to link that in the description if you guys want to apply. Right now, we're only accepting actual businesses as partners. So you're welcome to apply and just send us like a sales screenshot or an inventory screenshot or something like that. But the basic overview of our process, now that we're getting around $10,000 or more of video games shipped to us every week, is we actually reorganized the whole office in order to try to accommodate for it. Is first a box of them, say that it's this. At first a box of them will come in the door and we'll open it up and we'll see inside a copy of the buy list. And we'll first go through everything, open it all up. It would have been helpful to have to actually save a buy list package to kind of show people how everything goes through. We have one. Well, we do kind of have one over there. That's perfect. See, folks, I'm considering giving Spanky a raise to $4 an hour. We'll see if he.
I would be delighted.
So this right here is an example of a buy list package that we got just this week. The first step is to process. Well, okay, we're still working through a little bit of it, folks, because depending on how many we get in, we may or may not prioritize getting everything cleaned and prepped right when we open it. If there's a high degree of certainty that we'll be able to get through everything and get everyone paid the day that we get stuff in, then we'll go ahead and clean everything and then take it, the different kinds of games, over here to our sorting system, which we didn't actually have before I built these shelves, which has made a huge difference. And we'll take the clean games and we'll match them up with our similar titles, because at this point we're trying to send in like batches of the same game rather than listing individuals, because it saves us a lot of time during the listing process. The takeaway for anyone not in the video games niche is just that there are economies of scale and efficiencies of scale that you'll achieve if you can find replenishable products rather than just one-offs all the time. We've been able to do that because there are literally millions of copies of Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo and Donkey Kong Country 3 out there, and we now have a network of people who are finding these exact same games a lot, and we just pay good enough prices that they're willing to sell it to us and get paid the next week rather than going through the hassle of individually listing it. So we need to keep these separate. I don't think we've actually cleaned these yet. We'll clean the pins and Clorox wipe everything, make sure that the label looks good. On these, we'll inspect the discs and make sure that we don't need to plug them into our resurfacer, and make sure that the cases are all nice and shiny and the kind of thing that if you buy it on Amazon, you're probably not going to complain about. And then we'll sort them not only by console, but also by title on these shelves so that we can see at a glance, I've got 17 copies of Mario 3. We should probably prioritize sending those out because those will probably all sell within a couple weeks. And I've got 2 copies of Hyrule Warrior Legends. That's cool. But maybe this chunk of DS games, because they're all singles, we'll hold off on sending in until we have 3 copies of Bratz Diamonds. I don't know why this thing sells well on Amazon, but it does across like multiple consoles. Once that happens, we start this process over here, which is bagging stuff up once all of the games are cleaned and sorted. And I just spent this whole morning, or most of the morning, going through these stacks of 360 games. And there was like unbagged games over here. I plugged in a little video essay or someone else's basement resale rant into my headphones, and I just went to town, bagging, and keeping the stacks organized by title, so that, and the convenient thing also is that now that we have kind of a bagging station here, I can literally, once a stack is done, I'll put the labels out towards this way because that's Spanky's listing station right over there, and I'll pull a Patrick, I'll take the stack of video games and push it over here.
Pretty good.
Literally push the whole train of video games over here so that when Spanky comes to list, he doesn't have to resort. He doesn't have to like reshift anything around. He doesn't have to move stuff so that he can actually get a view and see and like take things off to the stack to see okay, we got 4 copies of Spider-Man Web of Shadows.
Because I cannot count that high.
And he also can't read, so he has to look at the pictures. He can just see at a glance, 1, 2, 3, 4. Plug that into the listing software, print off the labels, set them. The biggest area for improvement that the system might have is like, maybe if we could either like get a longer table or like a little corner unit right here to put more stacks on without having to shift them around so much. That could be a potential for future improvement of the system, because I'm sure you can imagine once we have like this table can probably only support like 5 stacks of that size. And if you get super high, if you get much higher than this, once they're bagged, they start just kind of slowly sliding off and creating problems. So we may want to create a little bit of additional real estate for ourselves there. And then after that, they'll all just get boxed up into whatever, splits or shipments that Amazon tells us to. And it's as a result of honing in that system that we've been able to get to a point of processing $30,000+ worth of the inventory that sells best and sells the fastest for us in a single week. I'm really proud of us for doing that, and I think it's gonna set us up well for 2024. I'm so excited to use this freaking thing. You're gonna see a lot more whiteboard videos coming down the pipe from me here shortly. And yeah, appreciate you all for watching. Look at Elsie.
Bark.